I'm Steve Johnson, News Director for theDove TV. Check out our other videos and visit our website at thedove.us. Thanks.
Welcome back. Well, here we are 8 days away from the election, and you have your ballots, and if you haven't filled them out yet, trust that you will take time to go through all of the voter pamphlet and take a look at the candidates and the issues and make sure you vote accordingly. Delighted to have in the studio with us today Darlene Taylor. She is a candidate for Representative District 4, which kind of is interesting because it does take in part of Central Point over kind of a weird district, isn't it? It goes over, takes in parts of Grants Pass. Where else?
It's quite large, actually. Yeah. It's a very rural district. Central Point, White City, Eagle Point, Rogue River, Gold Hill, eastern sliver of Grants Pass, and part of Applegate. So it's quite large.
Yeah, and it's very rural. Well, anyway, thanks for coming in. Why are you running?
Well, thank you. Well, I felt there was a need, and I'm not a polished politician by any means. I have participated in legislation in Salem. I've participated in testimony before committees. I served on the Commission for Women, and I also worked on a project with the White House Council for Girls and Women. So I've had some exposure, to the process, and I've worked with various legislators in Salem, and I just felt there was a need.
You got a very diverse experience, and you have a master's degree in business, is it?
My master's is interdisciplinary. It's psychology communication.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And the minor, the BS, was in business management.
All right. So, what do you think the biggest problem is in Salem? What is the biggest issue of the state that you want to solve?
There are many, many issues that we need to address in Oregon. And Southern Oregon, as you know, is quite a long distance from Salem.
Right.
So the representative needs to be consistent and strong to make sure that the voices from Southern Oregon are heard in Salem. And of course, jobs, I think, is number one. I've seen poverty in Southern Oregon that is the root of many of the problems that are being experienced here. Recently, I sat in on a fourth grade classroom, an elementary classroom locally, and I listened to a little fourth grade boy read, and he read very well. He was reading above grade level, but he was very tiny, and he was yawning most of the time. So I asked the teacher about that, and the teacher told me that 10 children out of the 30-some in his classroom got themselves up in the morning and got themselves off to school. And that was very disturbing to me. And the reason for that was the parents are working, and sometimes they're working 2 jobs.
So what would you like to do to fix that?
I am hoping that we can promote the small business development, the entrepreneurial type jobs, and companies that we can get started here in Southern Oregon. There's several ways to do that. Another one is to build in the high-tech area and what I would call green jobs, and then also building within the medical community that we already have. We can have a research center where we would have research, we would have teaching, we'd have seminars, we could have a convention center. So we could develop quite a few jobs and then bring in visitors also to
Now, you're big on research. So you're a research analysis. You like to read all those charts that most of us don't, right?
I was a research analyst on large military projects and satellite systems. So no, I really don't like to read the charts, but I like to see the outcome from all the data and the results that could occur from all.
You've been involved in a lot of children's issues, clear down into grammar school, and a lot of women's issues and health issues. What's your motive there?
Well, I just think that people that are underrepresented need to have a voice. Many times the people that are disabled or like children, they don't have a voice or input into many of the things that take place that affect their lives. So they need a representative to do that for them. So I've been involved with Children First of Oregon, Oregon Women's Health and Wellness. I volunteered for the Children's Miracle Network. I've worked with SMART as a volunteer. I've been a special education advocate. So, I've been involved with it for quite a while.
Now, some would say that we're very good in that area when it comes to education. A lot of funding does get into that area into the school system, and others would say not. But if you were sitting in the legislature, what would you advocate for to fix that?
Well, first of all, I think we really need to look at our educational system very carefully, because we want to make sure our children are learning the skills and the type of education that they're going to need for the future. There's so many courses now, like for instance math. I heard the other day that children are not learning multiplication tables. It's a very basic thing, but I think it's something that helps children in the future. Instead, they have some very unusual math problems, and some of that is coming through as a government, required testing.
What do you think of Common Core?
I don't like it. I think that we should not have Common Core in Oregon. I think that the teachers would have to teach to the test, and it cuts out a lot of the creative thinking and abilities, that the teachers have to teach children. And children learn differently. My son and daughter were very different learners. Music can be helpful. I mean, tactile learning. There's so many avenues to reach a child and to help them learn what they need to know.
Charter schools?
Charter schools are interesting because they do fill a niche, and I do see where children can grow in many of those schools. The concern that I have is on the financial side. If they're pulling money out of public schools, how is that affecting the children that are going to the public schools? So we need to have a serious evaluation of how the dollars are being spent and what we can do that would best benefit all the children.
A couple of the big issues on the ballot are, Darlene, are Measure 91, marijuana. Where would you be with that, the legalization of marijuana?
Legalization of recreational marijuana, I am not for that. And I know a lot of people say, well, you're going to gain tax money off of this marijuana, and it's going to relieve the court system and so forth. But we need to look at Colorado and California and other states and Washington State that have had some experience with that and see the pluses and the minuses. And right now it looks like there's more minuses to that type of program.
The other big issue is GMO, the Measure 92, the labeling of GMO. Where are you on that issue?
I'm in favor of it, and the reason is I have friends in Europe, and they have had labeling for many years. And if it's done correctly, it can be very beneficial to the public, so they know what's in the food products that they're buying.
Cover Oregon's been a mess, been embarrassing. It's been a total loss. Mm-hmm. We haven't signed up one person. Mm-hmm. What would you do as a legislator in that area? How would you like to see that turned around?
Well, first of all, we need to get the money back from Oracle, whatever funds that we can recoup from that. I'm a very conservative person when it comes to fiscal management, and I think that we need to spend our dollars wisely. We have elderly, we have people with dementia and Alzheimer's, we have people that have long-term disabilities that need to be addressed. So we need to make sure that people are receiving the care that they need.
The budget is always a tug-of-war for the funding of K through 12. It becomes the political football during a session, usually held over to the end. And there's been times where that's been the first thing that's been funded. Do you think there's enough money in K through 12?
I think there's enough money. I think that we need to look at how the money is handled. How many administrators do we have? I was quite shocked when my son was in high school. He's 25 now, but a few years ago I went to visit his high school, and there was a principal and there were several vice principals. And in my mind, there weren't that many students to have 3 vice principals. I mean, there's a huge amount of money there for employee expense.
One other issue in education, I noticed in some of your literature, you've been very involved, clear down into grammar school with students and even sex education at those levels. What's your thinking on that?
My thinking on
well,
sex
some
education?
of the groups, I'm trying to think of some of the organizations, forgive me, because I read through them pretty fast, of the various organizations you're part of where they do sex education clear down to 4th and 6th grade, or at least they're advocating that. That seems to be a little young, but I don't know your thoughts.
Well, I'm a conservative in that area too, but I think that we have to be realistic. And with the social media as it is today, which I don't really care for.
You don't have a phone?
I have a phone. I don't twerk or tweet or any of those things, but I think that information is and knowledge is power. And we have to help protect our children, but yet I want to preserve the childhood as long as possible. And unfortunately, the children are inundated with so many, images and words today that, frankly, I really didn't even know until I was a senior in high school. So I think that the times have changed pretty dramatically, and we have to address it to protect our children.
Okay, we're out of time, but how do people get a hold of you? In other words, the time is short, the ballots are out, maybe some people have already voted, but those who haven't, how do they get a hold of you?
I have a committee. It's called Committee to Elect Darlene Taylor, P.O. Box 3973 in Central Point, Oregon, 97502.
Okay,
And
we have that here. Thanks for coming in.
well, thank you so much.
Okay,
I
good to see
appreciate
you.
it.
All right, we'll see you next time on Focus Today.